You ever wonder why the government has emergency stockpiles tucked away in places you've never even heard of? Or why FEMA and the military quietly buy up certain foods in bulk without ever telling the public why? It's not paranoia, it's preparation. Because while most Americans are busy debating over expiration dates or falling for grocery store BOGO gimmicks, the people who actually understand food security are already 10 steps ahead. And here's the kicker: they're not buying obscure stuff you've never heard of. Nope. They're clearing out the exact same shelves you walk past every week at Walmart. You think that massive retail chain is just another store? Think again. It's one of the quietest gold mines for survival food, if you know what to look for. There are certain items tucked away in forgotten aisles or private label corners that aren't just good deals. They're strategic lifelines. The kind of things that can keep your family fed and functioning when everything else collapses. And guess who's been buying them up lately? Not just the ultra preppers and doomsday folks. Quiet purchases from agencies, municipalities, and even some foreign governments are spiking in ways most people haven't noticed. I'm not here to push fear, but I am here to wake you up. Because if the people with inside knowledge are quietly preparing, why aren't you? What I'm about to show you isn't hype. It's a list of 10 specific survival foods that Walmart has right now. But maybe not for long. And no, I'm not talking about the obvious stuff like ramen or bottled water. I mean the real, shelf-stable nutrition workhorses that you can count on when it matters most. The ones that disappear fast during crisis, but somehow always end up in those government storage bunkers you never get to see. Stick with me, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, how to store it, and why waiting even a few more weeks might leave you out of options. If you're walking through Walmart and skipping past the powdered milk section, you're overlooking one of the smartest survival staples you could own. It doesn't look like much on the shelf, just a bland container that most people associate with school cafeterias or camping trips. But here's the truth. Powdered milk is a shelf-stable powerhouse that's quietly being stocked by everyone from emergency agencies to off-grid families. Why? Because in a long-term crisis, real dairy becomes impossible to find, and powdered milk steps in without missing a beat. And we're not talking about the chalky stuff from the 80s anymore. Brands like Augustin Farms and Morning Moo have dialed in taste and texture so well that in cereal or recipes, most people can't tell the difference. Let's break this down. Powdered milk, when stored properly, can last 10 to 25 years. That's not a typo. 25 years. That means you could put it away today and still be using it in 2050. The trick is how you store it. Forget those cardboard boxes or thin bags. You want airtight Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and food-grade buckets. Moisture is the enemy. But if you keep it sealed and cool, you've got a dairy backup that'll stay good longer than almost anything else in your kitchen. And it's not just for drinking. Powdered milk becomes a secret weapon in survival cooking. You can use it in mashed potatoes, pancakes, biscuits, casseroles, soups, pretty much anything you'd normally add milk to. That flexibility is everything when you're dealing with limited supplies. You're not just surviving. You're still making food your family recognizes. That kind of normalcy is huge in a stressful situation. What type should you buy? Whole milk powder gives you better calories and fats, ideal when you need energy. But there are also non-fat options, and even lactose-free versions for folks who need them. My advice? Mix it up. Keep a variety. That way you're ready for whatever scenario hits. The bonus? Powdered milk can save you money even outside emergencies. Buy in bulk, and you're locking in years of nutrition at today's prices. I know families who use powdered milk in all their cooking just to stretch their fresh milk further. It's not glamorous, but it's smart, especially with dairy prices rising steadily over the past few months. And here's the part nobody's talking about. Powdered milk is already being quietly stockpiled, not just by preppers, but by governments, nonprofits, even some hospitals. FEMA guidelines include powdered milk as a key supply item, and several emergency food suppliers have already flagged delayed shipments. When supply chains wobble, this is one of the first products to vanish. It's compact, cheap, and feeds a lot of people fast. Exactly what you want when stores go empty. So, while everyone else is debating between almond milk and oat creamer, you could be calmly loading up on one of the oldest, most reliable survival tools there is. And if you think it's too early to worry about dairy shortages, just remember how fast shelves cleared in 2020. This time, don't wait for a crisis to hit. Stock up now while you still can. Most people think of canned meat as a last resort, something you only touch when the fridge is empty and the power's been out for days. But that mindset could cost you dearly. In a real emergency, protein isn't optional, it's critical. And when fresh meat vanishes from store shelves, canned meat becomes your insurance policy. This isn't about stocking up on a few dusty cans of tuna and calling it a day. The smart move is building out a full protein shelf. Canned chicken, beef, pork, even salmon. Why? Because your body needs fuel, and your brain needs variety. Let's get into the details. Canned meats aren't just easy to store. They're designed for longevity. Stored correctly, many last 5 to 10 years beyond the printed date, and some even longer. Preppers and emergency response teams have been eating 15-year-old canned beef with no problem, as long as the can wasn't dented or rusted. FEMA stocks it. The military rotates through it. That's because meat is one of the first things to disappear during a crisis and one of the hardest to replace. But it's not just about survival. It's about performance. During a crisis, your calorie burn shoots up from physical labor, stress, and lack of sleep. You're fixing things, moving supplies, helping neighbors, maybe even defending your home. Your muscles need serious protein. One can of chicken offers 30 to 40 grams of protein, more than a whole chicken breast. And you can eat it cold, straight from the can. No prep, no fuel, no fire. But if you've got rice or pasta, it stretches into a full, hot meal for the whole family. Now you've got choices beyond basic tuna. Keystone's canned beef and chicken are clean, just meat and salt, packed in natural juices. Lehman's has pork, ground beef, and even turkey that tastes way better than you'd expect. These aren't mystery meat blends. They're real food in real portions. And yes, vacuum-sealed meat pouches are another solid option. They're lighter, easy to open, and perfect for bug-out bags or car kits. They won't last as long, usually 6 to 12 months, but for mobility, they're unbeatable. Storage matters. Don't just shove cans in a garage or attic where temps fluctuate wildly. Heat is the enemy. Store them inside your home, in closets, under beds, in cool basement corners, off the ground and away from humidity. Treat them like an investment, because that's exactly what they are. Here's something a lot of people overlook. Flavor fatigue is real. If you've ever eaten the same thing 3 days straight, you know how quickly it wears on you. That's why having canned beef stew one day and teriyaki chicken the next keeps morale up. In stressful times, variety isn't a luxury, it's mental health. Changing flavors keeps you from dreading meals and helps you maintain normal eating habits. And don't forget the little details that make a big difference. Look for pull tab lids whenever possible. When you're tired, cold, or operating by flashlight, the last thing you want to deal with is a can opener that jams or breaks. I always keep at least 2 manual openers just in case, but I still prefer cans I can open fast. If you're just starting out, grab a 6-pack of canned chicken and a couple varieties of beef or pork. Rotate through them once or twice a year, so you're always stocked and nothing goes to waste. This isn't just food, it's a buffer between your family and desperation. And trust me, when that storm rolls in or supply chains buckle again, canned meat will be worth its weight in gold. When most people think about emergency food, they focus on calories, rice, beans, meat. But vitamins? Those get forgotten fast. That's where freeze-dried fruits come in. They're not just a sweet treat, they're your lifeline to essential nutrients when fresh produce disappears, and the best part? And These little pouches of strawberries, blueberries, bananas, or apples can last 10 to 25 years on the shelf without losing their nutritional punch. That's not a guess. That's data backed by government studies and the same preservation tech used in NASA rations and military meals. What makes freeze-dried fruits different from regular dried fruits? It's the process. Instead of just dehydrating them with heat, which can kill off key nutrients, freeze-drying locks in up to 90% of the fruit's original vitamins and minerals. That means vitamin C, potassium, fiber, all the stuff your body starts craving after a few days of eating shelf-stable carbs and canned protein, remains intact. When you're trying to stay sharp and healthy during a crisis, that nutritional boost becomes more than convenience. It's survival. Now here's the catch. These aren't always where you'd expect them in Walmart. You won't find them sitting with the fresh fruit or even near the snack bars. They're usually tucked away in the emergency food section, camping aisle, or even next to toddler snacks. That's because freeze-dried fruits don't exactly move fast off the shelves, unless people know what they're looking for. But lately, those shelves have been thinning out. Augustin Farms and ReadyWise pouches have seen demand spikes since mid-June. It's subtle, but if you shop regularly, you've probably noticed certain varieties going out of stock more often. Another reason to stock these? Zero prep. You can eat them straight from the bag, light, crunchy, and surprisingly flavorful. Or you can add them to oatmeal, yogurt, pancakes, or even blend them with water to make smoothies if you've got a power source. They're kid-friendly too, which is crucial. When everything else in life feels upside down, handing your child a handful of crunchy bananas or strawberry chips can make a hard day feel just a little more normal. And don't forget about their space-saving power. A single pouch of freeze-dried fruit can weigh just a few ounces, but deliver dozens of servings. That makes them ideal for bug-out bags or for tucking into small kitchen cabinets. The military uses them not just for nutrition, but for morale. A small snack that tastes good and reminds you of something familiar? That's worth more than you think when things get tough. Here's the play. Grab a few assorted pouches, berries, banana slices, apple crisps. Mix and match for variety. They may seem like a splurge now, but in a blackout, a handful of crunchy mango pieces can feel like luxury. They're shelf-stable, low-maintenance, and nutrient-packed. And if the government is quietly including them in FEMA rations and astronaut kits, maybe we should take the hint. Stock a few bags now, because when you need them, they won't just fill a hunger gap. They'll fill the vitamin void the rest of your prep shelf forgot. Everyone talks about rice and oats when it comes to bulk prepping, but there's a quiet category of grains sitting on Walmart shelves that most people overlook. Quinoa, amaranth, bulgur, millet. These aren't trendy health foods anymore. They're survival powerhouses. And if you check FEMA's recommended food lists, or look at what long-term storage companies are pushing right now, you'll notice these exact grains are making their way into institutional stockpiles. That's not a coincidence. Let's talk shelf life first. Properly stored in food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, most of these grains can last 10 to 30 years. That's serious peace of mind. And unlike white rice or instant oats, these grains offer full protein profiles, essential amino acids, and complex carbs. That means sustained energy, muscle support, and nutrients your body actually needs, not just empty filler. Quinoa, for example, is a complete protein, something that's rare in plant-based foods. Just 1 cup cooked gives you over 8 grams of protein and nearly a third of your daily magnesium. Magnesium, by the way, helps keep your nerves, muscles, and immune system working. Pretty important when things go sideways. Amaranth and millet are similarly rich in fiber and iron, and they're gluten-free, making them ideal for households with dietary restrictions. The real win here is cost. For around $50, you can walk out of Walmart with a multi-month supply of these grains. That's an investment that pays off now and later. Right now, food prices keep creeping up. But if you stockpile grains today, you're locking in nutrition at a fixed cost, something most Americans will wish they did once shelves start emptying again. Here's how to store them right. Skip the original bags. Transfer everything into Mylar liners. Toss in a few oxygen absorbers, then seal and drop into 5-gallon buckets. Label with the date and store them in a cool, dry place. Basements, closets, even under beds work fine. As long as it's out of the light and away from heat swings, you're good. And cooking them? Easier than people think. You can boil most of these like rice, but they're also great in soups, stir-fries, or even homemade bread. During an emergency, grains that cook quickly using minimal water and fuel become incredibly valuable. You don't want to burn through propane or camp stove fuel waiting for something to simmer for an hour. The truth is, FEMA and the Red Cross don't put out flashy warnings about these grains, but they quietly include them in their long-term kits. If you're serious about resilience, you should too. Don't wait until the next panic wave clears the shelves. Grab a variety now, store them properly, and know that when it all hits the fan, you've got real nutrition ready to go. Honey isn't just a sweetener, it's survival gold. It might look like a simple pantry item, but in a true emergency, honey becomes one of the most valuable and versatile foods you can have on hand. Why? First off, it never goes bad. Seriously. Archaeologists have found jars of honey buried in Egyptian tombs that are still perfectly edible after 3,000 years. That kind of shelf life puts freeze-dried food to shame. But the real reason honey belongs in every prepper's stash is because it does more than feed you. It heals you. Raw, unfiltered honey contains natural antibacterial properties, thanks to its hydrogen peroxide content. That means, in a pinch, it works as a wound dressing. Got a cut, scrape, or mild burn? A dab of honey can prevent infection when there's no doctor around. It also soothes sore throats, calms coughs, and provides quick, clean energy without the crash that comes from processed sugar. Here's the part most people forget. Not all honey is created equal. That squeeze bottle shaped like a bear? Probably heat processed and filtered to the point where most of its medicinal value is gone. What you want is raw, unfiltered honey, ideally local if you can find it. Walmart's great value. 32 Oz raw honey is actually a solid option. Store it in a cool, dark place, and it'll last indefinitely. If it crystallizes, no problem. Just set the jar in warm water, and it'll return to liquid form. Now, let's talk calories. 1 tablespoon of honey gives you around 64 calories of fast-burning energy. That might not seem like much, but in survival scenarios where energy is scarce and morale is low, a spoonful of honey can go a long way. Mix it into oatmeal, drizzle it over dry biscuits, add it to tea, whatever gets you through the day. And here's something most folks don't know. Honey mixed with peanut butter makes an excellent high-calorie ration for bug-out bags or roadside emergencies. Honey also holds serious barter value. In a world where grocery shelves are stripped and sweets are rare, a single jar becomes luxury. It's compact, long-lasting, and universally valued. Try trading a bag of rice for a candy bar when things get bad. Good luck. But offer someone real honey? That's a deal they'll remember. So, while others are filling carts with sugary cereal or shelf-stable pudding, grab a few jars of the good stuff. You're not just buying food, you're buying medicine, morale, and multi-purpose utility in one unassuming container. Honey isn't just for toast anymore. In a crisis, it's one of the smartest things you can have on your shelf. Dried beans and legumes might just be the most underrated survival food on Earth. They're cheap, last for decades, and pack more protein per dollar than almost anything else you can buy. Yet somehow, most folks overlook them in favor of canned goods or protein bars. Big mistake. Because when meat disappears from the shelves, and it will, beans become your most reliable source of energy, protein, and essential nutrients. And here's the kicker. The military and FEMA already know this. That's why beans are at the core of nearly every long-term emergency ration plan in the country. Let's talk longevity. Stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and sealed inside food-grade buckets, dried beans can last 25 to 30 years without spoiling. That's not a guess. It's a fact backed by agricultural storage labs. I've talked to people who've cooked beans that were older than their kids, and they still turned out fine. That's not just impressive, it's peace of mind. The variety is another win. Pinto, black, navy, red kidney, lentils, garbanzo. You're not stuck eating the same thing every day. Each type has its own unique nutrient profile, flavor, and texture, so you can mix them up to keep meals from feeling repetitive. Plus, many beans, especially lentils, cook faster and with less fuel than rice or pasta, which matters when you're working with limited power or propane. Nutritionally, they're beasts. Just 1 cup of cooked black beans gives you 15 grams of protein, tons of fiber, iron, folate, and potassium. They support heart health, stabilize blood sugar, and keep you full longer than any processed snack ever could. And unlike fresh meat, you don't need refrigeration, a grill, or even a kitchen. With just hot water and time, beans will get the job done. Even better, sprouting beans with just water can give you fresh greens in a crisis with no soil or sun required. That's fresh food when your fridge is long gone. Now, the mistake most people make is leaving beans in their original packaging. Those plastic store bags are not long-term solutions. They'll let in air, moisture, and eventually bugs. Instead, transfer them to Mylar bags, toss in a few oxygen absorbers, and seal them up. Then store the whole setup in a 5-gallon bucket with a tight-fitting lid. Do it right, and those beans will outlive your freezer and probably your fridge too. And let's be honest, beans are dirt cheap. You can walk into Walmart today and leave with 20 pounds of mixed beans for under $30. That's hundreds of meals for the price of a single takeout order. And you won't have to panic when shelves go empty. You'll already be ready. If you're just getting started, grab a mix. Pintos for versatility, black beans for nutrition, lentils for fast cooking, and chickpeas for everything from soups to homemade hummus. Start small if you want, just 5 pounds of each. Repackage them properly and build from there. The more you store, the more options you have when things get weird. Bottom line, dried beans are the real deal. The military uses them. Emergency response teams use them. And now, you should too. Not just because they last forever, but because they can feed your family when almost nothing else will. Canned vegetables might not sound exciting, but when the lights go out and fresh produce disappears, they become one of the smartest staples you can have on your shelf. Most folks think of green beans or corn when they hear canned veggies, but that's just scratching the surface. What you really want to stock are the forgotten heroes: pumpkin, beets, carrots, artichokes. These are nutrient-dense, long-lasting, and ready to eat without any cooking. And unlike that limp lettuce in your fridge, they'll still be good years from now when you actually need them. Here's the thing. People assume canned foods are less healthy than fresh. That's not entirely true. Many canned vegetables retain most of their original vitamins and minerals, especially if they're packed at peak ripeness. In some cases, they even outperform fresh produce that's been sitting in transit or under grocery store lights for a week. Take pumpkin, for example. It's packed with vitamin A, fiber, and potassium. Beets? High in antioxidants and great for blood pressure. These aren't just fillers, they're functional foods. And from a prepper standpoint, they're perfect. No refrigeration, no prep, no spoilage. Open the can, drain if needed, heat if you can, or just eat them cold. They're safe, satisfying, and shelf-stable for up to 5 years, sometimes more. I've seen preppers open canned carrots from a decade ago and still find them perfectly edible. As long as the can isn't dented, rusted, or bulging, you're good to go. Now, a lot of people load up on protein and carbs, but forget about fiber and micronutrients. That's a recipe for digestive misery and nutritional burnout. Canned vegetables fill that gap. They keep your system moving, support your immune function, and balance out heavy meals. They also stretch your food further. Mix a can of green beans into a pot of rice and chicken, and suddenly you've got 2 extra servings. Storage is a breeze. Just keep them in a cool, dry place, ideally inside your home, not the garage. Rotate through your stock as part of normal meals and replace what you use. No waste, no surprises. And don't overlook store brands. Walmart's great value canned veggies are just as good as name brands for half the price. So, if you're building an emergency pantry, go beyond the basics. Stock a variety of vegetables, not just the obvious ones. Pumpkin, spinach, mixed veggies, even sauerkraut. Yes, fermented food with gut health benefits. They don't just keep you alive, they keep you healthy, regular, and feeling more human in a time when everything else feels chaotic. Peanut butter might be the closest thing to perfect survival food that you'll find on a Walmart shelf. It's calorie-dense, shelf-stable for years, packed with protein and healthy fats, and, maybe most important, it actually tastes good. In a crisis where most meals are bland, repetitive, or downright depressing, peanut butter delivers comfort and nutrition in one compact jar. And no, you don't need the fancy organic kind or the trendy nut butters with coconut swirls. What you want is good old-fashioned, stabilized peanut butter, the kind that lasts, doesn't separate, and doesn't need refrigeration. Here's why this matters. When fresh food disappears and refrigeration isn't an option, you need foods that provide both fuel and morale. Just 2 tablespoons of peanut butter give you nearly 200 calories, 8 grams of protein, and a dose of vitamins like niacin, magnesium, and vitamin E. But beyond the numbers, it keeps people going mentally. A spoonful can lift your mood in a way that freeze-dried stew or boiled oats never will. There's a reason it's been a staple in military rations and backpacking kits for decades. Now, let's talk about types. Natural peanut butter, the kind that separates and needs to be stirred, is great for everyday life but terrible for long-term storage. The oil rises, it can go rancid faster, and in survival conditions, the last thing you want is a jar you have to wrestle with. Stick with stabilized peanut butter. Walmart's great value. Creamy peanut butter is a solid option. It's cheap, dependable, and has a shelf life of up to 2 years unopened, and usually longer if stored cool and dry. And don't think it's just for sandwiches. Peanut butter can be used in everything from sauces to baking. Mix it with oats and honey for no-bake energy bites. Stir it into ramen for a makeshift sauté. Use it to make a high-calorie spread on crackers or bread. I've even used it to patch calorie gaps in bug-out bags. Just drop a small jar in there, and you've added over 2,500 calories of usable energy. Here's a wild bonus most people overlook. Peanut butter is flammable. That's right. If you're in a true emergency and need to start a fire, a small dollop can actually ignite and help you get a flame going. It's not its intended use, but it's one more reason it earns a spot in your prepper kit. Want to take things a step further? Stock some powdered peanut butter, too. It lasts even longer and takes up less space. You just mix with water and you're back in business. It's also great for travel, bug-out bags, or backup storage if you don't have space for multiple jars. So while others are stockpiling cases of granola bars and protein powders, you can quietly load up on peanut butter and know you've got real, satisfying nutrition that checks every box: shelf life, taste, calories, and comfort. Just make sure you get more than one jar, because once it's open, it won't last long. Not because it goes bad, but because everyone in your house will be dipping into it every chance they get. Salt might not seem like a big deal, until you don't have any. In a long-term emergency, iodized salt becomes one of the most valuable items in your entire stockpile. It's not just about flavor. Salt plays a critical role in food preservation, electrolyte balance, and iodine intake, something your thyroid needs to function properly. And here's the kicker. Your body can't make salt on its own. Without it, things start to go south. Fast. FEMA recommends storing at least 1 to 5 pounds of iodized salt per person. That's not just for seasoning your food. That's for curing meats, fermenting vegetables, preserving food long-term, and even making oral rehydration solutions if someone gets sick or dehydrated. In a grid-down situation where clean water is limited and hygiene becomes a challenge, salt can literally help keep your body functioning. Now here's the good news. Salt is cheap. Dirt cheap. You can walk into Walmart and grab a 4-pound bag from the baking aisle for a couple of bucks. It doesn't expire, it doesn't spoil, and it stores incredibly well, as long as you keep it dry. Just toss it into airtight containers, or vacuum seal it in smaller bags, and you're good to go for years, maybe even decades. But not all salt is created equal. For prepping purposes, iodized salt is the priority. That added iodine helps prevent goiters and other iodine deficiency issues, especially during prolonged periods, without access to a varied diet. Sea salt and pink salt are nice to have, sure, but when it comes to core survival needs, iodized table salt is non-negotiable. And here's something most people miss. Salt isn't just for eating. In a pinch, it can be used to clean wounds, make saline solutions, preserve leather, cure meats, and even deter pests in food storage areas. It's one of those old-world staples that did everything before we had refrigeration and antibiotics. If you haven't already, go grab at least 10 pounds. It's a tiny investment that covers food safety, health, and flavor all in one. In an emergency, when the world's upside down and everything's unpredictable, salt is one of the few constants that still works exactly like it always has. Multivitamins might not look like survival food, but in a real crisis, they could be the one thing standing between your body and full-blown nutrient deficiency. Think about it. When you're living off canned goods, rice, and peanut butter, you're not exactly getting a full spectrum of vitamins. Your body needs more than just calories. It needs micronutrients to keep your immune system running, your energy up, and your brain functioning clearly. That's why multivitamins are in almost every government-issued emergency kit, from FEMA to the Red Cross. Let's be clear, they're not a substitute for real food, but they fill the gaps when your diet gets repetitive, limited, or outright poor, which is exactly what happens during supply chain failures or long-term power outages. And when stress levels spike, your body burns through nutrients like B12, D, zinc, and magnesium faster than normal. That's not theory. That's science backed by decades of disaster response data. The best part? They take up almost no space, are lightweight, and store easily for years. Walmart's Equate brand offers solid daily multivitamins for adults and kids at a fraction of the price of premium labels. Just toss them into your prep buckets with a few silica packets, keep them in a cool, dry place, and forget about them until they're needed. Most vitamins retain potency well past the printed date, as long as moisture doesn't get in. Here's something most people never consider. Kids and elderly adults are especially vulnerable to nutrition gaps during emergencies. Having age-appropriate multivitamins for your whole household isn't just smart, it's responsible. And if you're buying on a budget, look for clearance shelves or generic versions. A bottle that costs less than lunch could support your immune system for months. If you've already built your food stockpile, great. Now back it up with the vitamins your body needs to stay resilient. Because when you're living off shelf-stable carbs and protein, the missing piece isn't just flavor. It's the micronutrients your body can't go without. Multivitamins are a small prep with a massive return. Don't overlook them. Let's take a step back. You've just been handed 10 of the most overlooked high-value survival foods hiding in plain sight at Walmart. Powdered milk, canned meats, freeze-dried fruits, bulk grains, raw honey, dried beans, canned vegetables, peanut butter, iodized salt, and multivitamins. These aren't trendy superfoods or overpriced prepper kits. They're the same items that government agencies, relief groups, and military units stock quietly and consistently. The only difference is now. You know what to look for. Here's what I recommend. Don't wait until the news cycle turns grim or the grocery shelves start to empty again. You don't need to buy everything all at once. Start small. Add a few extra cans this week, a jar of peanut butter next week, a 5-pound bag of beans the one after that. Slow, consistent prepping builds real resilience, and it doesn't destroy your budget. Once you've got your supplies, store smart. Use food-grade buckets, Mylar bags, and oxygen absorbers. Label everything. Keep it off the garage floor. And rotate your stock. This isn't about panic. It's about having peace of mind. You're building a system that lets you feed your family, stay healthy, and stay calm when the unexpected hits. If this video helped you think differently about what's sitting on those Walmart shelves, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more coming. Breakdowns on how to store your food, how to stretch your supply, and how to prep without going broke. The next 12 months could get rocky. But if you're stocked, stable, and thinking ahead, you're already ahead of 90% of people. Stay alert, stay ready, and I'll see you in the next one.